whole year ago, I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek at Why We Fight as it went into its crowdfunding campaign, and since then, I've been waiting to get my hands on the finished physical product. This is something I've been wanting to showcase for such a long time, something that deserves so much more attention than it's been getting. It's such a unique game, a game that strives to be accessible while also innovating, a game that turns a familiar genre on its head, and a game that unapologetically taps into the current political zeitgeist. Why We Fight is a GM-less, solo or multiplayer post-apocalyptic game that is not about survival. It's about something far greater, making the world a better place. So it's finally time to take a look. I've got two books here, the A4 hardback core Why We Fight book and the more streamlined, portable and gamey Direct Action. I'll get into the differences between these two later. For the most part though, I'll focus on the core book. It's absolutely beautiful, clearly worked on by a close team at Stop, Drop and Roll, who even make cameo appearances in some of the vibrant artwork. I'll leave that as an Easter egg for you to discover though. The layout has a textbook feel, with lots of icons and graphics and formatting to help explain the ideas. In the PDF version, all the core concepts that are underlined like this are hyperlinked as well. It's clearly aiming to be accessible, but I will say, in my personal experience, I found all that stuff going on the page a little too engaging. I'd be halfway through a paragraph before jumping to another shiny section to see what that's about, and then to another and another before realising I haven't actually absorbed any of it. But that's probably just me. Civilization as we know it has collapsed. It was inevitable. The signs were there. We knew it was coming, and yet the systems that put us into this mess resisted change until it was far too late. And yet, in the ashes of that world, a seed of hope sprouts. The hope that we can rebuild better, creating a world where no one has to earn their right to survive. You'll play as a crew of those optimists from the Community Alliance, a loose network of peoples focused on building networks of aid and assistance. Their calling card is a simple one that requires the human touch of a hand, and their symbol is a dandelion, a weed to those who enforce monocultures, but to those who appreciate biodiversity, it's tenacious, ecologically beneficial, and a source of food. Of course, the goal isn't without obstacles in the way. Both the natural world and the stuff we left behind come with threats. Armed civilians still compete over resources, stuck in the mindset of the old world. The rich and powerful knew this was coming and prepared to emerge as leaders in this new world. The guiding hand, led by billionaire Jordan Frost, seduces vulnerable communities into becoming walled protectorates run on forced labour and overseen by Frost's heavily armed militia, the White Fist. Your crew of 4 scrappy eco-punks will take on missions to aid the communities around them and to disrupt White Fist activities. As you make your characters, you'll see the accessibility that Why We Fight aims at. You don't need to print a character sheet, you just need a single sheet of paper that you can fold, score and tear into 4 equal strips, one for each crew member. You fold over one edge and write HIT there so that it can be unfolded to mark a wound later. You note down their name and roll or choose a couple of distinguishing features to give you just a brief idea about who they are to start with. You'll learn more about them as you play. And for each one, you choose a specialism, divided into mental, physical and social categories. These basically give you a +1 to any role involving that specialism. Then lastly, you pick one of your characters and give them a personality discovery that you can roll or choose on page 25 or write one yourself. This is just a little snippet of text that gives you an idea about the character's motivations, history or personality. And mechanically, each character can invoke one of these once per encounter to gain an extra d6 on rolls. For the moment, that's basically it. There is more to a character sheet that you don't need to worry about right now, but might be worth mentioning. First, you automatically have a recurve bow and a melee weapon of your choice, and an additional 2 empty equipment slots for other stuff like gadgets or supplies. Second, personality discoveries have a negative counterpart called hardship discoveries, which you discover through, well, hardship, like a consequence for failing a roll, for example. A hardship discovery is a permanent trait that the character struggles with that can negatively impact rolls if it's not managed. And finally, as you complete missions, your crew members' relationships will develop, and you'll form bonds that can be invoked for a bonus to a roll as well. The gameplay is really neatly structured and, again, doesn't ask too much of you except another sheet of paper, a pencil, and some d6s. First, you pick or roll for a mission. Some are focused on aiding communities, some are more focused on fighting the White Fist. You'll have to travel to your objective though, and pass through different locations to get there, so for each step of the journey, you roll for the terrain. Then, you can get going. There's a step-by-step process here that involves a D66 table to generate some kind of event or encounter. Then you roll to see who's present there, and finally, a conflict that you've gotten hints of. As that situation starts to percolate in your imagination, the game asks you to think about how it brings up a personality discovery for one of your characters. Seeing abandoned technology might stir a character's ambitions as an inventor, for example, or encountering the White Fist might remind them of why they fight. And so the situation teaches you about your crew. You then have a choice of how to approach this situation. Do you want to offer assistance, mediate a conflict, make a connection, or do you want to leap into action? Each approach has a separate set of instructions for how to resolve it, and what the rewards might be for successful navigation. Generally though, the resolution will involve a check where you nominate one of your crew to lead the approach, and their bonuses or hardships will apply. You roll 2d6 and get a success on a 10+, a mixed success on a 6+, and a consequence on a 5 or lower. You choose the mechanical consequence from a list, and it generally applies to the character you had leading the action. So you need to balance who's likely to be best at the approach with who's more vulnerable to the consequences. Of course, the longest set of instructions is for combat, and I think I'll get into that separately because I've got a lot to say about it. For now though, there's something very elegant about this mission setup. Really, you're just setting up a series of encounters, but it feels like planning a mission, knowing a little bit about where you'll be going and how long it'll take, and instead of a point crawl, it makes it feel like a journey. Journeys are important in post-apocalyptic media. Seeing the empty streets and abandoned buildings, usually it comes with a sense of loneliness or tension, like the empty London at the beginning of 28 Days Later. But here the feeling is subtly different. It has a similar atmosphere to those journeys, but in a much more positive way. There's still the lonely sense of seeing the empty world, but you have your crew with you, and the hope that they bring. There's still tension. You don't know if the people you'll encounter will be friendly or hostile, and you need to be prepared, but there isn't the constant threat of zombies or anything like that. And this mission system captured that post-apocalyptic but hopeful tone so well. I will say that a small criticism I have is that the order of information in the book can be a little confusing at times. The procedure for each step is sometimes scattered around the book in small pieces with some essential rules easily missed. And while the book does a fairly good job of highlighting its terms and directing you to the right page, sometimes the info can be a bit difficult to parse. A couple of quick examples. The emotionally overwhelmed consequence says, write an emotional impact and a -1 beside it, but doesn't tell you what that does. If you look at the emotionally overwhelmed condition for answers, it says the crew becomes emotionally compromised and directs you back to the consequences section. The actual answer, I think, is that being emotionally overwhelmed follows the hardship discovery rules, except that it's temporary rather than permanent. And just like the tags and condition rules don't feel very consistent, the same's true for filling progress tracks. Some missions give you a track to fill in combat, but there's no combat action to do it with. The combat rules only have enemies filling progress tracks. And in the assistance approach, the amount a track fills depends on the degree of success of your role, and if you don't fill it in one roll, then rules as written you have to wait 6 hours until you can try another approach. Which really put a spanner in the works of my tense action scene when I first realised that. So, combat. Where to start with combat other than to say I love it? I didn't think I would when I first saw how involved it could get. I'm not usually one for overly tactical combat in solo games, but there's something really interesting going on here that I want to talk about. On paper, combat is extremely tactical, but as I go through it, remember that there's a big but coming at the end. You build up the encounter first by deciding or rolling for features of the terrain that are on the scene and can be used to gain advantage on certain actions. You then set up the opponents by spending difficulty points on enemy types to form different squads you'll be facing. Each enemy type has a set of tactics that can do things like inflict conditions. They also need an objective which comes with special rules. Your crew starts with the hidden condition, and there's a list of actions you can nominate a character to lead. Some of those actions will keep you hidden, some will reveal you. Being hidden or revealed switches the consequence table you choose from when things go wrong. There's lots of different actions and a massive list of conditions to track across 3 types: positioning, elemental, and status. Each action you take fills up a tally. When the tally is struck through, the enemy squads activate their combat tactics and mark a section on their objective track. Enemy squads have individual units in them that increase the total difficulty of that squad, and the difficulty is reduced as each unit is taken out, but only down to a minimum difficulty of how many total squads remain. It sounds like a lot, right? It looks like a lot. But let me go through it again, reframed slightly. You might have noticed that underneath all the complexity is a simple powered by the apocalypse style system with tags rather than stats. The different situation approaches are essentially moves guiding you through the resolution. And the thing about that kind of system is that it works with a fiction first, mechanics second mindset. So let's zoom back into combat. It asks you to build the scene based on what you imagine to be there, both the enemies and the environment, and then it simply asks, what do you want to do? You have the initiative here, and the roles are all player-led. Getting the hit tag is just one of several consequence options for a bad roll. Your characters always start hidden, so they can set up any plan they like. It prods you to get creative and asks, what do you want to do? And then you find a move that fits, one of which is literally get creative. Something I kept finding is that even if I started out a little confused, I'd come up with an idea and the text would just guide me through it and add some fun extras. For example, on a motorway, I came across a group of runaway workers being hunted by the White Fist. there was an upturned tanker nearby, and I wondered if my mechanic character could get the tanker's pump working and turn it into a terrifying weapon. Well, the Get Creative move does exactly that. You alter the environment and pick 2 conditions that the new feature can apply. I picked Flammable and Intimidated. The move to rig that up was a partial success and revealed one of my character's fear of fire. Next, I picked my party face character to lead the action, flicking a lighter menacingly as one of the White Fist was doused in petrol, and with a straight success, the White Fist soldier was intimidated enough to just run away. Why We Fight definitely has some squad tactics elements, but when you remember to play with a fiction-first mindset, deciding what you want to do and then finding a mechanic that fits, it flows so much better. And actually, it feels like a Larian computer RPG, encouraging you to play around with the environment, asking you to discover these fun little interactions. So Why We Fight has something of a one-shot mission structure, making it nice and easy to pick up, play a couple of situations, and put back down. Completing a full mission might take 3 to 4 hours, but it's also easy to link these missions into a larger campaign, and one of the ways it does that is bastions. A bastion is a settlement that you might discover or even help found. You generate some traits, its benefits and struggles, and give it an attitude score. And there are various ways that you can help this new bastion thrive, from donating supplies to generating an issue and building a mission and scenario around it. In return, they might provide benefits, like letting you spend a metacurrency outreach to call for backup in a desperate situation. The connection move lets you make contacts here and develop your relationships. Your contacts can develop into full player characters and join your crew. Your characters might even decide to settle down here and retire from the fight. Eventually, the Bastion might formally decide to join the Community Alliance. The game even suggests keeping a map, if you like, to keep track of your connected bastions, and even build a home community for your crew to set out from, which, as you continue your outreach work, might even attract the wrath of the White Fist. I think this outreach and community building is really the heart and soul of Why We Fight. And if you want to play a longer campaign, this is the way to go about it, and the core book is the one you want. If, on the other hand, you're more interested in the pick up and play mission system, you might want to consider getting the Direct Action book instead. Direct Action has pretty much the same core rules as the core book, but instead of you building the situations yourself, it presents pre-built ones for you, making the admin and creative workload much simpler. It makes Direct Action more of a complete game in the sense I've been talking about, where the content is ready and waiting for you in the book. So missions are a bit quicker to play through and tend to be more focused on action than outreach. You only really need one of these books, so if you want a quicker pick up and play one-shot kind of experience, then Direct Action is the one to pick. And if you want a slower paced, more open-ended campaign style game, then get the core book. You could of course get both and mix and matched based on your mood like I did. Why We Fight has a special place in my heart. Yes, it can be a bit confusing at first, and I could talk about how I'd like to change things like giving the tags and tracks more mechanical consistency, but I want to talk about something else. Someone asked me recently if any games have changed my real-world views. I think that's a fascinating question, and my immediate answer was Why We Fight. For what's essentially a post-apocalyptic game, it made me much more optimistic about the future, and let me try to explain why. The world right now looks grim. Billionaires hoard stolen wealth and power like dragons, producing little of value to anyone except their investors. The constant demand for growth above all else has vandalized the planet and left infrastructure crumbling. And as climate change, war and poverty forces desperate millions to flee their homes, they're met with the cruel rise of nationalism from the people who could help but choose not to. If you think that's a bit dark for a cozy YouTube channel about fantasy tabletop games, you're right. We don't tend to look at these issues head-on in tabletop games. We tend to hide them behind comforting fantasy stories where plucky heroes can tear down an oppressive system by beating the final boss. This isn't the case in the real world. You can't change things on your own, no matter how plucky you are. But Why We Fight shows how small actions from small people can add up to a meaningful change. I can't solve the world's problems, but through small gestures, we can make it better. And in the meantime, why not enjoy a little comforting fantasy where plucky heroes punch some fascists? When this channel first started a year ago, one of the early boosts I got was from the TTRPG newsletter's Media of the Week section. So, in the spirit of this game, here are some of the videos I enjoyed recently. Turk over at the Grouch Couch has been reviewing a lot of the kind of games I like to feature, and recently did an excellent and spoiler-free review of Spine. If you're curious about Spine, definitely give that a watch first, because mine does have some minor spoilers. There's a new and very high quality actual play series starting over on the Bad Spot that I've been listening to at the gym, using The Lands Remaining, which is essentially Dark Souls Brindlewood Bay. If you like more serious APs over chaotic ones, definitely give that a go. And finally, if you haven't been keeping up with Zigmenthotep's wild deep dive series into the infamous Fatal role-playing game, what are you doing here? Go and watch that. Of course, a massive, massive thank you to all the Ko-fi supporters who help me buy copies of games like these to showcase. If you feel eager and able to support what I'm doing here in that way, please head over to ko-fi.com/cozyrpgreviews. And until next time, happy adventures.